So let's have a squeeze at this rod. What? So that broke as soon as I loaded the thing up. As soon as I loaded it up, it broke. Are you kidding me? A little bit of a miserable morning. Hopefully she clears up. Coffee.
Brought these cold brews. Good.
He's a good one.
43.
43. Check out this little worm attached to his back. Tiny little parasite. This is a baby one though. Fly doesn't get rid of him. Oh yeah! This thing is a broomstick. It's definitely got backbone, yeah. It's definitely not a 1 to 4. It's at least, I want to say it's like a 2 to 5, or a 3 to 5. And you can feel it in the back, like I can feel it in the back here, like a really meaty. Excellent. It's a nice little sausage, isn't it? Look how fat it is. Okay. Milking everywhere, look at it. So when Shimano announced earlier this year they were re-releasing their 2017 Jewel series of rods as well as their Anarchy range, I got pretty excited. They hit the shops around about a month ago and I've been fishing with them ever since. Full disclosure, I actually reached out to Shimano pre-product release and asked them whether they wanted to do some video stuff like I usually do on this channel, and those guys left me high and dry. The so what for that is that the rods in this video were paid for by myself, and Burley Pro are funding the giveaway rods that we'll talk about during the video. But in terms of product, everything you see will be in affiliate links below, so if you're that way inclined, support the channel. Let's get back into it. Now it needs to be said, but it is a limitation of this channel and mine, but I simply can't afford to buy all the rods in a range to try, and thus it's hard for me to judge the entire range by its performance of a single rod in its series. What I can definitely do is review the common componentry and talk about my experience with these individual rods and provide my opinion on whether or not they're worth the money. So I've used them for around about 6 to 8 sessions, and they have been on the market for around about a month, but both actually share some similarities in terms of componentry on the rod. Both the series of rods are made from Shimano's woven T45 carbon blank construction, and the guides on both series of rods are Fuji guides, and they're the Alkalite K guides, which are around about mid-range and are about right for the price point that these rods go for. These guides are pretty good guys, and you'll find that you won't have the problem managing long leaders where typically the knot of the leader and braid sits on the spool and sometimes can get tangled on its way out and get caught up in a guide. This is an example on another rod, but these Fuji K guides manage the line well. In terms of design and the looks, the Jewel definitely looks like it is a more affordable range over the Anarchy, and I like the idea of the Anarchy going minimalist with its Fuji skeleton grip. In its own way, I think the Anarchy is really starting to appeal to the serious angler. Now many of you might remember Ian Miller, who's arguably one of Australia's best rod makers. I talk about his premium production rods quite often on this series, but He previously worked for Shimano and actually designed the 2014 release of the Anarchy range. I actually found a YouTube video, and you can see here it's got Anarchy by Ian Miller. It doesn't escape me that Ian now produces a production line of high-end rods called Miller rods, but he uses Fuji skeleton grips and has been doing so for a number of years. And now Shimano have released the same Fuji skeleton grips on their Anarchy range that Ian introduced into the company. So even before I was on the water, if you considered the original rod maker or the componentry that's gone into these rods, that 100% told me that the Anarchy series had the makings of being a really good product. And admittedly, in my experience, it 100% totally is. It feels really nice in the hand. Whilst we're talking about reel seats and handles though, for me, in terms of the Jewel, that handle there really closes the door on making it a viable option to stay on my boat. I used it around about 6 to 8 sessions and my hand just did not find it comfortable. Yours 100% may, and if it does, awesome, but the reel seats are such a personal thing. My hand just didn't find it comfortable, but more so, my thumb and my forefinger continually rubbed against this aluminium 360-degree hook keeper on the front of the handle. That grooving there didn't have the best finish on the rod that I got, and that grooving actually made it quite rough, and I could constantly feel it just scraping against my fingers. Almost like, I guess, a little bit of sandpaper on the end of your finger whilst you're trying to fish. Now, the tab data on the rod that I use rated from 1 to 4 kilo, and whilst there is no doubt that that rod is a heavier rating than that, it's actually not a bad rod for meeting fish out of structure or around the racks, which is why I used it in the sticks and threw some bass lures on it with 16-pound line. Because of that low end grunt meatiness, I certainly didn't get the casting distance from it that I usually get out of a 7-foot model. It certainly didn't cast as far as the 610 Anarchy that we'll talk about in a moment, but it also had the poorer Nasky reel on it as opposed to the Vanford, so the Vanford plus the 7-foot rod should have gone further. It totally didn't. And that's 100% okay though. In tight, it did a great job. It's just not the 7-foot finesse rod that is in the same category as the Anarchy. And for the reason of that thumb grip kind of sandpaper thing that I was talking about before, the 360-degree hook keeper, it won't be a permanent addition on my boat. Now, the Anarchy is about $30 more expensive than the Jewel, with the Anarchy sitting around about $219.99, $220. And between the two models that I used, the Anarchy was far superior and by a long way. I found it a much more enjoyable platform to cast, carry, and fight the fish with. It was a really well-balanced rod and is the one that I would buy out of the two. Based on my experience, I'm 100% happy recommending that rod to anybody looking for a good all-round rod that will throw soft plastics and hard bodies, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The rod felt really good when it was loaded up with fish, and I didn't have a problem controlling that 43 centimeter bream that you saw in the intro. I was able to turn the fish's head when I wanted so that I could land the fish at the back of the boat in front of the cameras and bring you guys along. The rod wasn't too flimsy that I couldn't cast accurately, and I do feel it's an all-around great rod, even if I did break my first one. Now, honesty is important, so I've included it, but the first model I purchased, I did break during its very first cast. I'll show you that in a moment, but I guess when you consider the really small failure rate of fishing products these days and simply the sheer amount of gear that I go through getting 3 packages a week, I'm bound to eventually get a product that's either been dropped or mishandled in transit. I'm sure you can appreciate my need to be honest in these reviews, but I do want to stress that I had 0 issues with the second rod that I got, and it was of course the same model as the first. I actually checked the stickers as well. They were made in the same batch, which told me that breaking that first rod was completely random. I'm still really happy to recommend the rod, and if it breaks in the next month, I'll throw it in the comments and I'll pin it at the top so you can all scroll down and have a look.
You'll be thinking, oh, he's got all the latest gears. Nah, man, look at me. I'm using Smarky scissors that are broken. I really like those scissors. All right, so let's have a squeeze at this rod. All right, balance isn't bad. What? Well, I'm a little bit upset about that. That's a $200 rod. Hello.
So I'll tell you how awesome the fishing industry is here in Australia. And this is happening really, really quickly. But I broke the rod, 15 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago now. I've been on the phone. I called the guys that I bought the rod from. They've called Shimano. Shimano have called them back saying, yep, no problems. Sounds like a warranty. First time on the water. We'll get you a new one. So we're going to hold the Anarchy. So all up, that 610 Anarchy actually fished really well. The lightly weighted plastics were really nice on it, and so were the those light hard bodies. So the giveaway this week is a simple one. You get to choose one Jewel and one Anarchy, and 2 different people will be winning 1 rod each. All you need to do is like and subscribe to the video and comment below on which model that you want, so you don't have to go and look it up. I'll throw the models up here so you can have a bit of a squiz at that. Remember, if you're that way inclined and you want to buy any of the products on my videos, the affiliate links below will definitely help the channel out. Remember, the purchases still do go through local Australian tackle stores. I just get a little bit of a hit from eBay or Amazon respectively. But in terms of the giveaway, it's 1 rod each, so get involved. One of the main things that popped out to me when I was purchasing these both these rods online was that I wasn't 100% sure whether this rod would be a soft plastics rod or a fast rod or a soft rod. And from a purchasing point of view, that's actually a little bit tricky. I didn't know when I was buying these rods whether I was going to get 2 soft rods suited for crankbaits and trebles, or 2 fast rods suited for soft plastics, or 1 of each. And that's effectively what we've got, 1 of each, which is good. But quickly share some thoughts here, but I do think in today's day and age, gone are the days of just being a little bit oblivious. We're now in this kind of information tech kind of space where all the info that you ever need is at your fingertips. And I think if you're about to spend $200, and if $200 is a big investment for you on a fishing rod, you're going to want to read a little bit about it, and you're going to want to know what type of rod that you're buying, particularly if you've already got one really nice rod, you're an online purchaser, and that rod that you've got already is, say, a rod that you love throwing soft plastics on, but you want to purchase a rod that you might want to throw lures that have trebles on them, and want a little bit of a slower rod that's suited for that application. The mystery behind what a rod is suited for really needs to be answered by brands these days, particularly when a lot of us are all moving in the current climate onto online shopping. Now, that's not a reflection on these rods themselves. I'm just saying that it was a little bit difficult trying to figure out what rod I would end up buying or receiving in the mail.
Don't worry about the net. Yep, there we go. Yeah. I got another drag on.
It's a circus. Oh no!
Oh,
That's embarrassing.
don't worry about the net.